Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Well, hey friends, it's Martine Williams, your host of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast and your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. Welcome back. This is episode 16, and it's our Turquoise Talk edition this week. And I'm so excited to welcome Brooke French to the show. Brooke is a nurse, a holistic health coach, and writer. She is a wife and mom to two teenagers and lives in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Brooke has a passion for empowering moms to slow down, take care of their health, and find joy in their everyday life. Her website, you can find her at brookefrench.com. We'll put that in the show notes. She provides free resources to encourage moms in their journey from meal planning. I need to go there and check out some of her meals to faith-filled devotionals, which is also linked up in the show notes. Brooke is the author of the devotional titled Overwhelm. Anybody need to overcome some overwhelm? As a nurse and holistic health coach, Brooke infuses her medical and holistic health knowledge with her own life experiences with depression and anxiety to fuel mothers in their God-given purpose. She is an amazing woman. I'm so honored to be able to call her a friend and co-laborer in this mission to help you to burnout-proof your life and your business. So I hope you have your pen and your paper ready because this episode is all about cutting the crap. Let's do this. Well, hey, friends, and welcome back to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. I am super excited about my guest today, Brooke French, and we're going to be talking about all things overwhelm, how to overcome overwhelm, specifically going into this holiday season. We know that's when the crazy comes out. And one of my favorite taglines that Brooke says is cut the crap. And so we're going to be talking about cutting the crap, like leaving behind the things that don't matter, plus just kind of give you a little bit of insight into her life as a mompreneur. So Brooke, I'm so excited that you agreed to come on the podcast. We talk almost every week. So I'm thankful for you in my life, and I can't wait for my community to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, good. So I always like to start out with just tell us a little bit about you, about your family. I know you've been pretty much in the medical background, a good long time, but you've also become a mompreneur. So tell me a little bit about you, your family, and then we'll talk about the mompreneur.
Yeah. So I'm married. I lived here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I have two teenagers. And yes, I've been a nurse. I graduated way many years ago with a nursing degree. And I've done a lot of different nursing jobs, from hospitals to doctor's offices to home health and kind of everything in between. And in the last 10 years, I've been working in the clinical research side of things. But about 10 years ago, when I got into clinical research, which I do love because it's kind of a business side of things, I did miss using my creative side. So I started writing just on a free blog that I could get a hold of and just kind of writing my thoughts, kind of trying to erase mom guilt, kind of trying to write things about my faith, but also about hey, you're not alone.
Right.
And really, honestly, thanks to you coming to me and saying hey, this is a real thing. People do this in real life, not just as a hobby. I was oh, okay. A couple years ago, started doing it a little bit more seriously and kind of working on branding and also doing podcasts and just doing different things and kind of writing more and sharing more.
And I do feel like you and I are co-laborers in this message, to women. We have a lot of similar beliefs and values. And I think that's what I saw in you, and that I wanted to be like, hey, like this can be a thing. Like people need to hear what you have to say and not just read on a blog, because I don't go on a lot of blogs. And so I was excited to see you kind of jump in there. Was there anything specific that kind of, besides you're missing the creative side, like was there something else that kind of drew you into what you're doing now and what you're pursuing too?
Yeah. So like after I had my first child, I had postpartum depression. And I didn't really even know what was wrong with me, other than I felt like everybody else was happy and I was not, and I didn't know why. And I loved my kid and I knew I should be happy because it was a huge blessing, and I'd had a miscarriage before her. And so I was like, I'm supposed to be happy. But during that time, I found authors like Lisa Turquoise, and there was a lady, Julie Barnhill, and there were these Christian women that had came out and said, hey, I lost it with my kid. And hey, I'm not perfect all the time. And I have experienced depression. Sheila Walsh was another one. And because of those women, whom I've never met, but their writing actually was like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. There's other people who have experienced this. And that was really, really helpful. So as I got older and my kids got older, I felt like more people need to know, talking to moms and being around moms through school with my kids or church or just in life. I was like, everybody's believing the Pinterest side of momhood, and like no one's talking about, like, it's not like that in real life. Yeah. So I just had this burning desire, and I still do, to say like, hey, no, it's truly not like that. Like nobody's getting up and doing devotionals at 5 a.m. with their kids and having worship music. And, it's perfect. It's not like that. We're all trying to run out the door. So that was kind of the catalyst, the heart behind wanting to write, other than just being creative.
Right. I love that. And would you say that, let's go back to that season that you were in, that dark season you were in, like coming out of that, like what was the deciding factor for you when you were like, enough's enough? Besides seeing the other women were struggling too, you still had to take action. So if there is someone that's listening right now who is there, like she's going through postpartum depression, or maybe because of the pandemic, she's kind of in that place, what would you say are like her first 1 or 2 steps? Because it's baby steps.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be proactive not to go back there. If I'm being honest, it's not something that I'm a positive person, but if I left to my own negativity, snarkiness, or just, self, I will go back into that pit. So some of the things that for me during that time exclusively was getting around community. I was not at the time around positive community. What I was allowing in was not really positive. I was around a lot of negativity. And so I had to be really conscious and be aware of it. And then I had to say, get out of it. I had to be really careful. And now I can't imagine being a young mom. Facebook was just coming on the scene. So now with all the information that is scrolling in your brain constantly, I can't imagine. So I would say if someone was listening, be very, very careful what you're allowing in. Even the good stuff, even the good Christian mom saying, this is what you need to do. If that's making you feel icky and it's making you feel like I am less than, mute, get off of that. There are like some workout ladies that I think look amazing, but they, I can't look at that. I can't hold that standard. So I just need to mute it. Also, like I said, getting in positive community, making sure that you are talking to real life people. I mean, it's hard to do when your kids are little, but even if it's just everybody go to the park and throw your kids and let them run around, and then you go. I mean, I literally had a play date one time that was like, how do you cook dinner for your kids and your family, like more than once a week? Like how do you physically do it? Because I just didn't know. I was like, how do you meal plan? How do you do this? So just getting around, other like-minded, positive moms really makes a difference.
Well, and I think the beauty of community too, and what we realize when we are willing to kind of take our own mask off and say, I'm not okay. Or, hey, how do you cook more than one meal a week? Like there are other people that are in that group that are like you too, struggle with that too. And there's so much freedom in knowing that you're not alone.
Right.
And that there are other women that are struggling with the same things or different, or maybe you find that what she's struggling with, you can help with, and vice versa. So community, getting in the right community, they say it really makes sense. You want to be in the right village with those people. And, what I heard you say is knowing yourself and knowing what you can be influenced by and what you can't be.
Yeah.
And that's different for everybody. So it's not you're not coming from a judgmental place, but what triggers you.
Right.
And if you don't, you'll figure it out pretty quickly. If you find yourself in that dark space. So it's just having that awareness to these things trigger me. And then being the adult to yourself, just like we do for our kids. We know there are things that trigger our kids, right? And we know that too much social media is too much for them. We have to be adults to ourselves and parent ourselves a lot of the time on the same things, right?
Absolutely.
So I love that. So a lot of people, I like to ask all of my guests kind of what their typical day, because that's the number one question I get from my audience is like, how do you do it all? And what does your day look like? And what routines do you have? And, just all of the things. So
well, in all honesty, this morning, I was like, my routine is something is wrong. I need to change it all. Because I don't do it all. And I still people leave with attitudes and they're like, what went wrong? I thought we were good. I don't know. So normally my routine is I get up, I give myself 15 to 30 minutes before other people get up in the house to just have quiet with my coffee and try to put some type of devotional or scripture or something in my head. And I do journal. Sometimes it doesn't happen before they get up, but I do need to journal. I'm a verbal processor. I'm a processor. I've got to get it out. And so to get clear on what God is asking me to do or what how I need to approach that attitude this morning, I need a little clarity in my journal to say like, okay, where's what's true in this situation, what's not true, what am I bringing to the table? So that's really important to me. I do exercise after everybody gets out of the house. I do something here. I just have some dumbbells. Maybe it's a walk around the block. It's something very simple. And then I work from home remotely. So I'm a full-time employee and I work behind computer screens for, somewhere, I have to be accountable for 8 hours a day.
Right.
So I work, and then in the evenings, it's like Uber / Activity Central. I always tell moms with young kids, like, don't sign them up for that stuff because all of it's going to come at some point, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And we are currently in the season where it is very much our situation. And I'm thankful for it. Look, my daughter has 2 years before she's done with high school. I know this is a very short season.
Right.
And so I'm grateful for it. It brings us pleasure. It also is that positive community. When we go out to the games, we're surrounded by other parents. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. We can say like, what's your kid doing for Halloween? And you can survey the scene. There's a lot of positives that go into it too. So that's my day to day. I try to cook. I do try to cook dinner or get food on the table on the nights that everybody's going to be home, which are very few and far between. And that's really important to me because that's about that only, my mom calls it grounding time, that time of settledness. That's important to me, but I try to walk during the day some, get out from behind the computer screen, just trying to mix it up, but it's simple.
Well, and like you said, it's a season, and I know, the women that are listening, that some of them do have littles in the house right now. It's a very different season than a house full of teenagers. They're both hard. They're just a different kind of hard. And it's finding those moments of joy and finding those moments of growth. As a mom and as a wife, I feel like parenting grows you. Having kids grows you and stretches you, but that's why it's important to have the community and to know, what grounds you as well. You talked about kind of grounding your family, but what grounds you and what feeds your soul? Because you are constantly pouring out all day, every day, and you work full time. Plus you have, this other business that you're trying to grow and reach women with this message. So if there's someone who's listening who's like, well, I work full time, but I have this side passion that I want to do, like it is doable, right? I mean, you're living that right now, and you've had seasons where you were more into it than not, and that's just life. And I commend you that you recognize those times where you need to dial down, the one that you have control over. The other one, like you said, you're accountable to the 8 hours, but when you're trying to grow another business. And I know just recently you kind of went through, kind of a rough season or just kind of a burnout season where you were trying to do the 8 hours and you were working this other thing that, God called you to. So, tell me a little bit about what that burnout felt like for you, because I do think women experience it differently. Some have the physical, some have more of the mental exhaustion from it. And then what things did you do to bring yourself out of it?
Yes, no, I probably about, I would say 4 months ago, well, actually 6 months ago, I signed up to do a holistic health coach nutrition school, and something I've always wanted to do. I have a big passion for holistic side and medical side kind of coming together. And I signed up to do that. I'm sure you might be listening and be like, she's crazy. I know sometimes I just get a little excited. I wanted to do it. I added it on. I'm like, talk about releasing things and I added on. But nevertheless, in that time, I also got offered a new job. And so I transitioned doing the same thing I've been doing, just with a new company. And during that transition, it's just, there's just so much new, programs and different people you're working with. It was a lot. And I got really overwhelmed and got burnt out. And some of the things that for me are my red flags are the snarky irritability comments that I vomit all over my family. And it's more than just, what I'm saying, like a once in a month. I mean, it stays, and I know that's going to be that's a problem, and I can truly feel it. And I'll be like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I be kind? That also sleepless nights. I'm just you waking up, just fitful sleep where you're so, they say you're wired and tired. You're so wired, but then, you can't fall asleep. Also, for me, I have kind of reoccurring low back pain. I'm sure it has something to do with sitting in front of a computer all day long. But when that has always been, since I had babies, it has been when it starts to flare up, to me, it's always saying, what are you doing too much of? What are you saying yes to too much? It's always just been kind of a red flag for me.
Right.
And then just like where I can't complete a thought. You're just really, really foggy and spacey. And my big one is where I lack compassion. So when I start walking around and I'm judgy and I'm just admit it, I get judgy, I get really defensive, get really, it's like an 8th grade middle school girl that comes out and she just is rude. And so when she comes out, I'm like, okay, whoa. Like I have no capacity for others. I have nowhere to give kindness to. And as that was happening, the physical and the mental, I decided, I was like, whoa, something's got to give. And I wasn't giving myself a lot of grace in starting a new job. I was just like, well, I took 2 weeks off in between, and I was like, well, that'll be great. And that'll be fine. And then, you got a new email address, everything. It just was radically changed. And I realized that I wasn't giving myself grace. I was not doing my grounding, kind of the things that were important to me, the journaling, the exercise is something that's very, very important to me. I was not doing any of that stuff, and I needed to kind of get that plugged back in. That kind of helped. Also, one thing that's always been helpful and was helpful during this most recent burnout was having honest conversation with my people. I tend to push through and not get real honest with myself, and then in turn get real honest with my people. Yeah. So saying, it was truly, I think it was my husband that was like, you're going back to school, you're working full time, you just changed jobs. Like, why are you trying, you're trying to build a side hustle too at that time. Wait, why are you trying to do all this? It's not, it's not like the year of 21's everything's got to be like Padal out there. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. But it was just through that honest conversation that we were able to he kind of pull me out of that pit of like, hey, whoa, what are you doing?
Right.
So honest conversation is always, that's kind of where Cut the Crap came from, was that just getting real with myself, with God, and also with, people that you trust, making sure it's people that you trust and can confide in. And people that really know you and know your capacity. We're the worst to the people that we live with. So him, being able to say like, I don't like me right now, and he of course was like, you're being too hard on yourself, but know how you feel, and you're like, this is not sustainable.
Well, and it's hard to come clean with that sometimes, even with your spouse, and sometimes even more so with your spouse, because we have these expectations that we put on ourselves to show up in a certain way. And especially if you're someone who's an encourager or someone who's used to being that positive person, which you are, to be able to like raise your hand and be like, I'm drowning, or I need help, or I'm throwing in the white flag. Does anybody see me?
Right. Yes.
The strong ones are the ones that you don't know when they're hurting.
Right.
You don't know when they need the help, because we're just supposed to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and move on, because that's what we've done. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, like, was Brett the first person you went to talk to about it, and just how that conversation went down? So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, he's the calm to my crazy. But at first I would just talk to him and complain. At first it was just like, and this and this and this and this. And so, he's kind of like deer in headlights at those points, like, where do you want me to go with this? Or you want me to, like be on your train or off your train? What are you trying to do? But
they feel like they need to fix it.
Yeah.
We just want them to listen.
Right.
Like, I don't need you to fix it right now. I just need you to validate and listen.
Right. Which I have told him at times. And so I'm sure he was probably like, is this a listen time, or am I supposed to speak up, or what am I supposed to do? Bless his sweet soul. But it was finally me being honest with myself and God, and saying like, this is not, like I said, it's not sustainable. I can't, keep doing this. I cannot keep all this up. And also him saying like, hey, one of the things that I think we do really bad as a society is we don't understand there are seasons for things. You said that earlier. And just, hey, it was like a new job is a season. It becomes an old hat soon enough, and there will be a time when you get through training or whatever, where you have a little bit more wiggle room, or, where football season will end, or whatever it is, there will be times, but sometimes when you're in it, you're just swirling and you are picking yourself up by the bootstraps, and I'll rationalize anything and be like, well, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Well, I should probably drink more water. Well, maybe I need to lay off the gluten. I mean, I will come up with anything and just be like, that's what's wrong. And in reality, like, no, like, be honest with yourself. I can't keep all this up right now.
Right.
So I did have to say no to some really, really good things. I had opportunities that came my way that I had to say, like, I physically don't know how I could do that right now. I can't. Thank you, but no, I can't. And it has been hard. It was very hard.
Right.
Now I feel much, much better. But at the time it was hard what are they going to think of me? Why can't I do it? I want to be asked again.
Right.
But again, that's, taking out the sovereignty of God and understanding like, hey, I felt like he was like, I'm calling you to step back a minute and take a little breather for you and your health and your family. I'm going to handle all that. I'm going to handle it. But I'm not going to tell you right now, well, it's going to go down, but I'm going to handle it. And you're going to have to be okay with it. Control freak. But,
any fellow control freaks or people pleasers listening, I'm sure there are. And, that's, I talk about saying no all the time and how hard that is as people pleasers. But it is a skill set that we need to learn. to be able to do. And it's all in the mindset of how you look at the word no. If you realize that all you're doing is honoring your priorities or honoring what, God has told you that he has for you right now in this season, like it's easier to know you're not being a mean person. You're not being a mean girl. You're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or disappoint anybody. But that's just the learned behavior and the learned habit of our mindset and what we tell ourselves immediately. When someone asks us something, we're like, and I would even challenge everybody who's listening, when someone asks you to do something, what's the first thought that comes through your mind? Is it just a reaction and like, yes, because that's what you've always done? Is it fear? If I don't say yes, then I'm going to, be looked at in a different way? But really start checking your mindset and seeing kind of where you are. And I think the more of us that are willing to say no, it just sets such a great example. I mean, the lady today was talking about how she's mastered the art of saying no. And she was kind of being funny. She's like, because my daughter doesn't really like it that much. And I said, yeah, but what an example you're setting for your daughter to know that it's okay to say no. Not only is it okay, like we can't be everything to everybody. And we need to let our yes be yes and our no be no. Because how many times have you said yes, knowing in the back of your mind, you're going to have to go back and cancel that?
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just a reaction, right? It was just like what you've always done, a habit to be yes, or you were afraid of what they were going to say in that moment. And we just can't be responsible for how people respond to what we're trying to stay true to.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of times we block someone else's opportunity to serve in that position.
Amen.
Or,
yes.
And I that's one thing I've learned. I was serving in this one capacity for a very long time. And I felt so guilty for so long before I bowed out. And now this person is doing it and she loves it. Mm-hmm. And I hated it for years, and I was like, wow, think of how that it's been good for her as a young mom. It given her something to, be positive and creative and get her out of being at home with her, just so many things. And I'm like, I blocked that for a year or two, just out of stubbornness and being afraid to disappoint someone.
Right. So you mentioned journaling, and I always like to ask you this because, journaling is not my favorite thing, but I know that it's something that I make very difficult in my head. I overcomplicate it. So it becomes overwhelming to think about journaling. And there may be someone on here who's like, I've been wanting to journal. I know I need to journal. It's really going to help me with my burnout, or it's really going to help me as I go into the holiday season. Like, what are just like maybe 3 tips like to get started on journaling? Like, just keep it simple. That's your message on everything, is how simple can it be, right? So when you first started, if you were going to tell someone you should start journaling, what would you tell them, like 3 things to do?
Well, I think it's really good to start out with gratitude. Just listen out, 3, 5 things you're grateful for. I think it sets a tone for your mindset. I mean, I've talked about mindset. My mindset can go negative really easily.
Yeah.
So pulling myself into gratitude fresh out the gate is always a good way to start anything. And listing is easy, lists like this warm cup of coffee, my soft robe, my new weighted blanket, whatever, just something very simple. And then I do, with the gratitude, I will either list out some prayer requests, or I've been doing this for a very long time, so it's a little different, but I write out how I'm feeling. And I'm just like, one day somebody's going to read this and think, wow, my mom was crazy, but it is what it is. So I get it out. I just get it out. I feel like I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better employee. I'm a better, serving. I just am better if I get it out. That's just how I've always felt. So, but even just listen out, this kid's this problem, this kid's this problem, this, work here. I'll do gratitude. Then I'll do a couple prayer requests. And then in the end, I do like to either some type of devotional, whether I like Jesus Calling. I do a lot with Proverbs 31 ministries online, whatever, something. And I just either write the scripture out. Sometimes I'll just literally copy it. Or sometimes I'll just, write after I read it, what I'm thinking, like, thank you, Lord, that you're with me. I mean, it can be something very, very simple. And sometimes journaling looks like a walk in the evening with my husband and kind of going over my day, and I'm getting it out that way.
Getting it out, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't always have to be paper to pen, but for me, It feels safe. A lot of years, my husband worked very late nights in the bartending industry. And so I was alone a lot. And so that's kind of where it was cultivated. I journaled some growing up in middle school and high school, but I was so lonely. And so I just needed a place to be like, this today happened and I don't know what to do with this. And just, I needed somewhere to dump it all. So now I don't have the time as much. On the weekends, I will sit down and write longer. And that's where I get clarity about this side hustle. And I get the clarity. I feel like the Lord gives it to me in those ways. But I would just say, keep it simple. I mean, we don't get a lot of stillness in this world.
Right.
At all. And for me, it's a very simple way to get a little stillness in my day.
Right.
And I know if I'm feeling it, I'm like, I'll just butt in the chair. I need to go sit down. I need to write a little bit. I need to get it out because it's
coming out one way or the other.
It is. It's going to come out. It's going to come out. I tell my kids, I'm like, if we don't get it out, it's going to come out sideways and you're not going to like it. Because, it's in there. Yeah. And it needs to get out. But, when we suppress all that stuff, I believe it comes out sideways. It does. It comes out. And I'll truly go to my kids and say, look, I just did it yesterday. I had to say, like, I'm sorry, that frustration to you was really about a work meeting I had 2 hours ago.
Right.
But without that journaling time and that self-awareness time and the Lord working on me, I don't put that together.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I make it a priority.
Yeah. That's so good. So how long would you say your burnout lasted before you feel like you were on the way out?
I would say a good solid, I was probably burnt out for a good 2 months before I said, okay, like I paused my business coach. It was something that I loved and I really enjoyed, but I said, I've got to put this business on the shelf for a little bit. Yeah. Because I've got to get acclimated to my job and I've got to, also do the school. I've paid for the school, right. I've got a responsibility here and I do enjoy it. I love learning about it, but there's only so many hours in a day.
Right. Yeah.
So I felt silly, paying a business coach when I was like, I can't really put much to my business right now.
Right.
And so I was like, it took me probably 2 months to come and be like,
admit that you have it and that you need
I need a break. Mm-hmm. And then once I get real honest with myself and I start putting in the pieces, I can kind of come out,
right.
pretty good. Mine's the process, getting there, arriving and going like, hey, this is not okay.
Right.
It's the turmoil leading into it.
Yeah. Like you said, you can justify it for days and that's what we do. Oh. We justify it for days and weeks and months, and then we either get sick or something happens or the bottom falls out, or like you said, we kind of lash out. So I think the key is, because it's not that you're never going to experience burnout again, or that I'm never going to experience burnout again. It's just catching it earlier and sooner so that you can deal with it, recognize, oh, here we go. This is what's happening. And when you know what burnout looks like for you, some of the things that you just shared about what it felt like for you is a little different than how I experience it, but it's knowing what it is for you so you can catch it early and then address it, and kind of work on coming out of that. So thank you for being vulnerable enough to share all those things. So we are getting ready to move into the holiday season, and, things just kind of can get very chaotic if we don't have a plan or just some ways that we know how we want to show up and kind of overcome the overwhelm. I know you've got a devotional that you've written on that. We're going to put links to all of Brooke's, her website, her blog, and all of that in the show notes. But what are some tips you can share with a mom, going into the season? How can she keep that overwhelm kind of at bay?
One big thing that I know that I do, and I really work hard, is prioritizing sleep. I don't feel like we do that real well at all. And that was one of the things that if you need some melatonin or something to help you rest, get your sleep. And it's different for everybody. Some people can operate on less, some people need more. But I think making yourself a bedtime, just like you do for the kids, parent yourself, like you said, getting that sleep. You and I both know after a good night's sleep, that brain is firing better. I'm nicer to my people. I'm nicer to myself. So I just sleep is a one as you go into the season saying like, hey, Thursday, Friday, I know we've got these parties or whatever, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially if you have littles, like it's going to be bedtime and we're going to bed because I know coming up, there's a lot coming up. So doing that for yourself. I'd also say for me, and I think it's important for all of us is movement, whether it's, because we can't control a lot of the festivities that come our way. We can say no to some, but you got a work party, you got some obligations and things. Right. So it's not as easy just to say like, no, no, no to everything, right. But I can show up my best self. And I know I feel better if I take a walk around the block, if I get some fresh air, if I get outside, if I, get on the Peloton or whatever, yoga, stretch, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to process the food I'm eating better. I'm not going to feel as yucky with everything that I'm eating or drinking. So I know that's really, really important for me, making sure I'm prioritizing my sleep and movement. And then also going into the holiday season, I'd like just have some anchors, just some things that are important to me. Like I was talking about, that dinner is important for me to feel filled up and feel together as a family. Just know what those are for you or your family or both. And I like the movement. I know for me, I'm going to be nicer if I get outside a little bit or if I get an exercise in. So I'm going to prioritize that. But same with my family. Like I know I like to watch Elf one night together as a family, nobody on their phones, which hopefully won't ever happen. But just, those anchoring things and make them simple. Don't be like, we need to go to the mountains and, hike. And I get like that
on Christmas tree.
But I'll be like, yeah, reel it in. I want the Pinterest world too, but then I have to go like, okay, we got this and this and this. Yeah, exactly. Got to bring it back to real life. And so just making sure you have those anchors and making sure that you are prioritizing those so that when you do go out and you are being with, whether it's, other adults or other families, and you're like, we already had that time together and I feel centered with my people. And so now I can go out to you guys and give you some of my energy, because nothing is more frustrating than you're like seeing all your people be all nice to everybody else, but then at home they're like evil. And I'm like, no, the nice happens here first. Okay, people. And then we go out. So yeah, making sure that we're getting our nice in, maybe it's just s'mores around a fire pit. It's got, something simple, but those are the things that, I make sure that we're getting in so that I can, as much as you can, avoid some of the chaos.
Well, and having that as a family conversation, I think is so
that's great,
especially as your kids get older, like they're old enough to kind of say, this is what I'd like to do this year. Maybe it's something different. I'm like you, we like to watch Polar Express night before Christmas on Christmas. We've done that forever. And we had to break some other family traditions with our extended family to provide those moments for our family. And I think that's really hard, and why the holidays become so stressful for so many moms is they want those moments with their own family, yet they have all these other traditions or people pulling at them. Well, this is what we've always done. Well, your priority is to your family first.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And that's hard. We've all had to do that. So I just want to give you permission to start now by having those conversations with your family first. Like, what are some things they want to do? Do they want to stick to the same traditions? Is there other things that they want to do? So when you know what those are, then it frees you up to either say yes or no to the other things without feeling guilty about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And get on the same page with, your kids and your husband makes a big difference, because then you don't feel like it's just you.
Right.
And then you can kind of have a united front. But yeah, it's a small window. It doesn't feel that way, but it is a small window where everybody's at home.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're not saying like, ask for me in my house, we get lost. And like, I've heard it a million times, like someone else will make your schedule for you. They'll dictate your life for you. No questions asked. So you've got to have that ability to say like, no, like we gotta, and it may be you had an idea for a Friday night. It might be, you have to move it to Wednesday. Be flexible, like you have to be realistic. You can't say anti everybody, but also getting really, really honest with them and just saying like, hey, I want to do this. And
Right.
my kids have always surprised me. I've always been like, and then we could do this and this and this. And they're like,
No.
we're like, just a movie, like, I'm like, oh, okay. And to them, that is enough, even when they were little and still, they get it's simple things normally that give them what they need.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the most freeing things for me, was actually sitting down and talking to my kids about what was most important to them, not just during the holidays, but just in life in general. I was like freed up from all the expectations I had put on myself that they cared zero about. So if you haven't done that, the holidays is a great time to start, but it's something to consistently do, because as you go through different seasons with your kids and with your spouse and jobs and all of that, it's just really important. I mean, communication is just key with yourself and with your family. So if you had a chance really to talk to, all the mompreneurs, let's say, of the world, what's like the best, if you had to speak to them for just a few minutes, like what's the one thing you would want to make sure they knew?
I would say that even small progress is still progress. And I think sometimes all we see, we know the algorithm, caters to us. And sometimes when you're in this space, you're getting fed a lot of information, and it seems like everyone's very far ahead of you.
Right.
They have, whether their website's perfected or their Instagram or whatever it is, but just staying the course and doing small steps leading that way. I think you're making a much bigger difference than you realize. And that consistent, just small tweaks and changes and just staying the course really, really makes a big difference. And I think in the end, it does pay off. But I think at the beginning, you can let all of that noise paralyze you. Right. And not keep making progress in your lane.
Right.
And so just trying to make sure that you're being careful what you allow in, and finding like-minded people, too, is very, very important. I mean, if you have someone that does things very different from you, then you're going to feel constantly discouraged. And so making sure that you're not, if that person does things very different, if they don't have a full-time job, say, and they're doing it full-time and they have a team of 10,
right,
like maybe that's not the best influence for you.
Right.
Because maybe that makes you feel bad about your life, like, I'm just trying to get supper on the table.
Right.
So, it being very, very careful about, what you're allowing in, and then making sure that you're celebrating the progress that you're making. And no, it doesn't happen overnight. Those are few and far between.
Oh,
and, being real, real patient with yourself.
Yeah.
But if you go on Instagram or, different thing, you might be led to believe that that's not the case, but for most of us, it is the case. It's a slow.
It is. It's slow, but slow progress, like you said, is still progress.
Yeah.
And that's with life and with business. So what are you most excited about in this current season that you're in?
Oh, what am I most excited about? I have enjoyed my children both doing sports this fall. That has been very fun to watch them. They're both doing something they've never done before. And that's been very inspiring to me. As we get older, we kind of get in our ruts and stay in our lane. And they go out on a field or a court and do something they've never done before in front of hundreds of people. And I'm like, wow, when's the last time I did anything like that?
Right.
A long, long time, So I feel like it's very courageous. That excites me. I get really excited to see them do that. I'm very proud of them. I get excited about the holidays. I do. I like the decorating the house. I like the smells. I like, the warm coziness. I have to make sure I don't get into unrealistic expectations on all of it, but I do. I enjoy the holidays. I enjoy the family time. I enjoy, the meals and things like that. So going into that, and the weather is beautiful.
It
so
is
nice right now. I miss summer. I like water and all that, but it is so beautiful right now. And
it's good to walk outside, not sweat, right?
Yeah, it is. It is nice. It is nice.
Okay. So the last thing I like to ask is just kind of what some of your favorite things are. So what's your favorite book? And that's really hard to pick one, but
yeah, I know. I like a lot of books. Recently I read Growing Slow by Jennifer Dukesley. And it is a book she's nonfiction, but she wrote a productivity slow down book before. And this is more about a hurried heart, in that actually we can do all the productivity, situating, simplifying, but this is where are we mentally and in our heart. Right. It's a really, really good book. And it was one of those ones you can pick up over and over again and be like, and get a nugget of wisdom from it.
All right. I'll add that one to my list. I was hoping it was one I already read. So my stack is just
no, I really liked her book. It's really, she's a good follow too on Instagram. She's got really good stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Do you have a favorite quote or a favorite scripture or a mantra that you say?
I mean, it changes so frequently. I just always, I repeat, he makes all things new a lot to myself, just because he is constantly growing us. Like you said about parenting, he's constantly growing us and constantly changing, having teenagers really kind of, to me, puts that at the forefront. Mm-hmm. And I know that he works all things for good. So when I'm watching us all, not just them, but me wiggle in this new space as a mom to older kids, I know, no, he makes all things new. He is working all things for the good. And I kind of repeat that to myself. Like when I'm laying in bed, wondering when they're going to get home. And I'm like, he works all things for the good. He works all things for the good. That's currently where I am.
So hard.
Right, it's so hard. It's brutal.
Oh, it's and I remember that was like a rule in my house. When I came home, I had to go in and give my mom a kiss goodnight. Didn't matter how late it was. That's and I mean, like she was awake, and most of the time she was awake. And, when Lucas got his license and is driving, I'm like, am I going to be able to stay awake and not be worried the whole time, that they're gone. And so it's still tough, but it really made me appreciate my mom for doing that, being there and being awake, or I just knew that was how I was going to end my night, was going in there and giving her a kiss.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that. I'm going to start that tonight. I like that.
I feel like she was just testing to see if I've been doing it.
I mean, I'm with her. I like it. I really like it. I was thinking that on a lot of levels. I was like, I think I'm going to use that.
Yeah. So I do, that is a rule for us too in this house. So anyway, well, this was fun. You mentioned several times, like, going for a walk and getting outside. Is there anything else that, Brooke, you do that's just for you that you really feel like is cup filling?
The journaling and reading books. I mean, I like to take a bath about every night. Yeah. If I can and we're not at the ball field, or I do dinner, everybody else cleans up because mama cooked.
Yeah.
And they know that there's not a whole lot of talking to me. I'm in the bathtub. But I mean, I just need it feels good on my joints. Yeah, it just feels nice. And I like, my lavender and my salts, and I'm in there for a little bit, and it just helps me wind down from the day and stuff. And so if I can, I will get it in most nights. That's very important. I put in some me time. Don't you worry.
Oh, that's a great way to end it out. She puts in some me time. So how are you doing? Those of you that are listening, how are you doing on your me time? And that's not to, throw judgment. It's just awareness. Again, we talked a lot about on this podcast, just being aware of your triggers, being aware of your community. And do you have a community, and being aware of, are you filling yourself up? Because you are pouring out so much. And this next season, these next few months are going to be a lot of pouring out. So maybe it is a 10-minute bath. And I do think sometimes we complicate that, what our me time looks like. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a weekend trip to the mountains or a whole girls weekend, but just a simple 15-minute with my coffee and a devotional, or going to take a bath, with some lavender. So thank you so much. This was so fun.
It was fun.
And we'll include, like I said, all of the links for Brooke, so you can connect with her, read her blog, and anything that she has coming up. I know she puts up there on the website, but she's on Instagram too. What's your Instagram handle?
Brooke A. French.
There you go. Brooke A. French. All right, Fran. Well, this was great. Thank you so much for being on this episode. And I will be releasing another episode again every week. Every Thursday is the fun day for the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. So I will be talking to you all very, very soon. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much. for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.